Her name is Joy. Her name is Joy. That's right, her name is Joy. See, sometimes I mix up her name with the feeling it echoes. Joy is sleeping in my bed. Joy is her breath on my skin. Joy is a noun who is proper.
What?
Last night I found a pit of sand at her center, and I didn't know if I was inside the girl or in the word. Beneath this joy is this sinking feeling that I mix up people with the words they're named for far more often than I realize. Her name is Joy, and maybe that's just a coincidence. Maybe joy means something different as a name slapped to a baby's backside. That poem didn't have anything to do with water, but it had the word sinking feeling in it, which were also in Stephen Gray's poem, and I think he stole those words from me. Thank you. Thank you for admitting that. Anyway, okay. So, let's see. I'm going to read one some of you might have heard before, because I read a few months ago at Quiet Lightning. But when I heard of water, it made me think a lot of islands, because I love islands, and part of my family is from the island of Trinidad. So this is about my grandma, and I feel like reading it to you because I feel close to y'all. It's called Island Home. Well, wouldn't you be afraid if you were her? With memories slipping from your skull like the warm sand of your island home falling through the cracks of your brain, and you clutching all you have left by your ribs while you sleep, waking each morning to find someone tugging your treasures away. This is for Granny A, who's starting to forget the important things, like my father's name, a name I hope I always remember, and the name of the island she calls home, the place the rest of us call Trinidad, only because we haven't lived there as long as she has. Lived there so long she doesn't need to call the island by name, can reach out to it the same way you can call to the mosquitoes, by dripping sweat like syrup, not salty but sweet, from sugar cane thicker than your thigh. It's no wonder she doesn't want to change her clothes when the folks who offer her new outfits look more like strangers each day, and the only thing more familiar than the warm, thick blanket of heat is her own smell, rising from her body so that each time she inhales, there's a chance she could take back something that was within her, like echoes of her baby's cries, which once leapt from the walls of this house as she wondered if they'd come from within her own throat. Some parts of the island will never leave her, like the stray dogs who follow her on her heels. In a way, one can never get lost beneath skies made of honey and cantaloupe stains. And in a way, even the unpaved roads will always lead home. You don't remember, but you've been there before. All of us have been there, with strangers hovering over us because we don't know how to care for ourselves, but Granny A is holding on in a way none of the rest of us know how. So this is for my grandmother, who's thinning but not waning, who might have written this herself, except she's not like me. It's not words she wants to remember. So while I stand so far from her island trying to decide where on my body I will fit tattoos of all the words I never want to forget, she's kissing and tasting each memory as it floats on the wind that drifts away. And someday she won't remember what home is, but she'll know how it feels. And she'll know on her lips, on her skin, and in her bones that this is the air she wants to breathe. This one's called Gutterfish. Mostly because I don't know how to name my poems. You don't know you're an island until you're surrounded by water. Like the night I find a fish in the gutter and I can hardly hold on to it because this is no ordinary fish. And I am not, after all, doing any ordinary fishing unless you call gutter diving for half-smoked cigarettes ordinary fishing. It crosses my mind that what I had earlier must have been no ordinary drink. I'm holding the fish and it says, I'm just trying to get home. Weren't you on your way home too? He gasps through his green gutter mouth and opens it to speak again, but I say, wait a minute, I've been drinking, but no amount of beer can make a gutterfish nag me to find home. Something's not right here. It's not right that I'm lying in this gutter, searching for polluted breath, and the only one trying to save me is a fish that swam up from the sewers of my own mind. I can say I'm craving a nicotine fix, but I'll never get what I'm really after, and I get the feeling nobody's going to really say that, but this creature who's only here because something went wrong with the alcohol or with my imagination or with the shit we put in the sewers. When I find I'm an island, it's all the brightest of blue water all around me, and wouldn't you know that the moment you find you're an island, you just drop your heart instead of beating it. There's a cycle for this too, as it spreads into the seas and soaks into the air and rains upon all the roots that need a rhythm for growing. And as I release the fish into the sea, I remember I caught a fish once with my uncle, and it was so small it fit into the palm of my hand, so small we had to send it back, as if it didn't know what it had just nearly been through. We think we can just throw them back after sticking a hook in their mouths and yanking them from the water. We think they'll just forget what we've done. We think somehow that we will too. But it's true that I'm not ordinary, so that is no ordinary fish. So, did you all know that today is National Women's HIV Awareness Day? Yeah, you did? Yeah, sure. No. And I actually work in HIV awareness, so I'm actually going to need to hear a cheer for National Women's HIV Awareness Day. So I'm going to read this poem called Her Blood, because water also makes me think of blood. I don't know, am I the only one? No. Her blood. Every tale begins in a woman's blood. The only difference is this one's honest about it. It's blood that binds them, mother and daughter, and it's blood that brings them together in a brick building where bodies at work wear all white, as if they're angels of life and not predictors of death. There is no cure, they say, only a lifetime of pills. They say there's no healing, only surviving. But she, the mother, has told her daughter there's no such thing as only surviving. There ain't no living this way without pushing for each pump of your heart, and there ain't no dying until the day you're ready to be dead. Her daughter believes her, if only because she's seen her mother living, and where you might have seen dying in her eyes, she saw fighting. She's never known skin that wasn't holding on, creating earth-tone caves for those precious bones it carries, or muscles that didn't flex as they weaken, so even when they rest in troubled waters, they never sink to depths unseen. Of course, there are times when mother and daughter wish they were bound by more than tainted blood, days they grow tired, feeling as though they've fought long enough now to bloom into a new body, but there's no body but their own, and they don't dare ask for more from a world offering a little less each day. And today, as they sit waiting for a doctor to say that they need thicker blood, that they need more T cells, that they need to be swallowing more pills, each of them asks for just one thing. She, the mother, for her daughter's hand, smooth as the day it first reached out to her. And she, the daughter, for her mother's voice, saying just about anything, as long as it's honest about it. I've got this blog called Inkblot. I blog basically about the relationship between writing and social change, or about whatever the hell I want to blog about. But and I found actually online the other day my first I don't know what you'd call it, my first internet hate. Somebody had found one of my blog posts where I called out Oprah for not having a woman on her book club since 2004. And basically I was talking about how I felt about women and people of color and queer people being excluded from all these lists and things. And these people on this website called mensrights.net, I think, they posted that post on this forum, and there are all kinds of comments about it, including the best writers, like everything else, are men. And I suspect, and I suspect she's just a naive broad looking to gain acceptance in an insane society. And my favorite, no thanks, I'd rather not subscribe to such garbage written by sexual deviants.
That's a compliment. I was going to say,
I love that a lot. So I wrote this poem with this in mind. This is called Before You Love a Deviant.
Oh, I love that.
Before you love a deviant, first draw a thick black line between where your actions end and deviation begins. The deviant's most dangerous poison is her ability to pry at the soul of the ordinary citizen until before you know it, you are quite the deviant yourself. Don't draw this line on a place as fragile as your mind, but on a solid surface like your concrete feet where even the wettest temptation can't wash it away. Just don't walk too far now from where you started, or the line might start to fade and you might begin to forget yourself. Second, be prepared to lose, because this will cost you some working part of the body. The deviant takes what she needs to learn from, and if you've got anything she's never seen before, it's hers to keep. Be prepared now, for your body will betray you. You'll think of the deviant the next time goosebumps stand in protest as your arms hold back from a heart you wish to hold. She won't leave you unchanged. Your heart will pick up a third note between the tha and thump. Or your ears will find a space between silence and sound, and you'll start walking the world on ground you never knew would bear the weight of you. And third, before you love a deviant, know that shapes will shift before you. You might see roads snaking through to places you won't reach without carving your own way. You might find people are softer than they appear, but only by reaching out to touch them. And by then you'll be thinking again of the deviant. It will seem that you've already forgotten yourself, and all of a sudden your only fear is that someday you'll forget her too.
What?
Speaking of being a deviant,
Yes.
I guess I'll read this silly poem. I also wrote when I was kind of angry, but it's called Unidentified. I need to take out time to say this only because sometime between the latest recorded bloodshed and my mother's latest questions about my dating life, the idea came to me that all these dire happenings in the world, the war, the disease, and the suffering, it's all because you don't know enough about my sexuality. And how selfish of me. It's only just been brought to my attention because of the urgency of your inquiries, and I can assure you that had I known that world peace could be achieved simply by revealing the details of my pussy's history, I would have done this much earlier. Here's hoping it's not too late. As to the most common question of whether I'm gay or straight, the answer is neither. There are no options in between, that I am nothing more than a figment of your imagination. Fluid, they call it, like water, so that you can pretend that like water in a glass I'll remain clear and unseen. And while we're on the subject of putting irregular humans into regular shapes, let me start out describing my type. After all, in this game we should call not dating, but repeating our mistakes. We're not really playing unless we're making all the same moves and landing in the same places, our asses. And speaking of asses, aren't I supposed to say the parts I like? The tits or the ass? Isn't this how this type thing works? When I'm asked what part of my lover I think is sexiest, I say her bottom lip when bitten. That is, unless I say his fingernails with dirt beneath them. I like bodies that tell stories, skin with traces of where it's been, so when we make love, I close my eyes and it's not you I'm thinking of, but the parts that create you. It's your hair, heavy with smoke, that wasn't your own, but came from the stranger smoking around you. And that's when I feel sexy, when I feel like I've been found, from the strangers whose breath has found me. But there I go again, talking about me, forgetting about what this means to you. If all you want to know is how I feel about body parts, the truth is this. If I paid nearly half as much attention to my lover's gender as anyone else did, I would know more about their genitals than about their minds. And if I have a hard time believing that I'm the cause of some kind of unrest because I don't pick a side in terms you can wrap your black and white boxes around, and I have a hard time speaking of love in your language, but let's give it a shot. You know a little bit more about me now, and maybe now the world can have its peace, or maybe now we'll flow as ever before.
You're my hero.
I think I'm just going to read two more.